them too, but not
She
as
may
much as
be here. So if she comes at 7, I would probably
Have you
recommend
seen the bath in our new house?
we can determine whether she wants her statement read or she wants to articulate
Close on
it
Friday.
aloud.
No.
Ben, you good? Good. Colleen, you good? Pretty good? Okay. I'd like to call this Saline City Council work meeting to order at 6:01 p.m. Members present are Council Members Camara Sulak, CO, Delorco, Dylan, Kraus, Mayor Pro Tem Gearvon, Mayor Marl. From City Staff, we have City Manager O'Toole, Clerk Royal. Is there a motion to approve the agenda as submitted unless there are amendments?
So moved?
As submitted, Councilmember Dillon?
Yes.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by CO. All those in favor of approving the agenda as submitted signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Ayes have it, the motion carries unanimously. There are no absences this evening, so we'll proceed to public comments under the Open Meetings Act. Any citizen may come forward at this time, make comment or question on an item that appears on this council agenda. The public comment period will be limited to 3 minutes per person. Anyone who would like to speak is requested, but not required to state his or her name and address for the record. And just to note, we are talking exclusively tonight about the community event policy. So if you have comments, questions pertaining to that, we would welcome those at this time.
Mary Haston, regarding the community event policy, I would like to know what the cost is to the DPW for all the flags going up and going down for any time you break wind, and how much the DPW is putting on these community events of the DPW. We got enough trouble getting help now.
Thank you, Mrs. Hess. Are there any additional comments on agenda items this evening? The record will reflect there are none. We will transition then to the one and only discussion item of tonight's work meeting, which is the community event policy. Clerk Royal, would you like to begin?
Certainly. This is brought to you after review by myself, Parks and Rec Director Scruggs, DPW Director Searles, Community Development Director Harrington, Treasurer Cole, and City Manager O'Toole. We all looked at this, and this was taken from another community that already had public events, so we modified it for the city of Saline. And this covers special events that are held on city-owned property and are not sponsored by the city. So I'm just looking for any questions or any feedback on this policy.
Let's just we'll go right down the line here. So I will start to my right with Councilmember Kraus and end with Councilmember Delorco. Councilmember Kraus, any questions for Clerk Royal?
Not at this time.
Okay. Councilmember Camara Sulak?
No, I see some of the changes that we previously discussed, so I don't have any additional questions.
Okay, easy enough. Mr. Seal?
Seems pretty well written to me. I have no questions.
Okay. Councilmember Dillon?
Okay. Got my red pen. Okay. A lot of them are just, some really just, nuanced type things about, just sort of wordsmithing it a little bit. When we talk about, and like I'll just say in the first paragraph, you say any organization, I think, or maybe add or individual, because it's not necessarily an organization that's going to come forward.
Can I stop you right there?
Yep.
Unless there's objection, that change will be made. I think that's a good suggestion. Please continue.
No problem. The biggest question I had was that we talk about 30 days. I feel like that is just absolutely not sufficient for planning. If it has to go through a bunch of checklists and be approved by council, I feel like it should be a minimum of 90 days so that it has a chance to kind of cycle through, and then if we have questions, it has to go back to the applicant and then come back, that it's sufficient time. So I just wasn't sure. I just didn't feel as though 30 days was a good enough time frame. So there's a couple different areas in which it talks about 30 days.
City Clerk, you want to respond to that?
We did up it to 60 days. If you look at the events, the fees, if you submit applications 60 days or more, it's $100. After 60, you have 45 to 59, it's 250, and at 30 to 44 is 400. And that's because there is so much more going on. You're trying to get it pushed through faster. So this is to encourage them to pay the $100 fee and submit it 60 days or more in advance.
I appreciate that. I just still think, I'm not sure that the deterrent, that the financial deterrent is going to be sufficient for people. It's more on a time frame. Like if right now I look at what's going on in the city and it's election season, do you actually have the time to review applications, things like that? So I just feel like the more lead time we have, it's better planning. We've just come up against the wall a few times. I feel like we've burned this bridge a few times already. And so setting us up for success with people and not getting in a point, you know, it's obviously, it's not a hill that I'm gonna, you know, die on, because most of the legwork is on the backside. It's on city staff. It's just a matter of making that time to make sure that you feel comfortable with it.
Yeah, I would say the 30 days is really a policy call, because at what point do you guys, I agree with you, I mean, 30 days is very tight for us, but that's what we do, we try to make it work. If council wants to set a different kind of hard deadline date, that would certainly be something staff can accommodate, but 30 days is the least we could see doing. Keep in mind, when we're saying 30 days, we're saying if you submit it less than 30 days in advance, it's an automatic no. So, you know, no consideration will be given.
Well, maybe we can revisit that. 'Cause
Yeah,
we will have-
like I
I'm-
said, that's fine.
No, I was actually going to ask you a question.
Okay.
We're going to have ample time for questions because we got an hour, but maybe when we do a second round, people can speak to this point. You have some concerns with 30 days. Would you recommend that the minimum be 60?
I would say, yeah, I would say
Okay.
60. These are events that should be planned well in advance anyway, so I think having a good understanding of that, you know, because there's just so many components to it of like signage, things like that, that people are going to have in advance anyway, if they're going to advertise, because we clearly said in here that signage has to correlate to the event itself. So like you can't advertise that you're having food trucks till council has approved that you can have food trucks at your event. So I think just making sure that everyone is on the same page about that. But we can, like I said, we can kind of see where everybody is about that. The other thing was that when we talk about renting facilities like the parks, I think that we really should make sure that we have in there that reservations don't imply any guarantee of approval of a special event. Kind of it.
Action.
Oh, that was under, I apologize, that's on the bottom of page 1, the last paragraph, use of the city park facilities.
Okay, I like, yeah.
Yep,
we
that's a
can
good
easily add that.
suggestion. Unless there's objection for the dais, that verbiage will be included.
Okay. So do we ever talk about, I don't think that I saw it because I made a comment about it, which was, do we talk about, do people get a full refund if their event is not approved? We talk about timeframes for getting full events, but I think that's on their end if they cancel it.
Yeah, we don't specifically, but I would say that we should refund any fees if we're the ones denying the event.
I can add that full refund for denial.
That's fine.
Add without objection.
There's a couple of spots where it talks about other requirements of the special event policy. I mean, I just assume that whoever reviews this, is this clerk royal, it comes to you, and then you, like, is there a form like that they're checking boxes to go to?
Well, this is the policy, and then
Right.
they also have to fill out the application. And when the application comes in, like the park would go to Carla, and Carla has certain parks that will allow food trucks and other parks that won't. So when she gets that, then she forwards it to me. And then I have a check off for everybody at the end of my community event policy that I get approval from the police chief and the cost, the fire department and the cost, DPW and the cost, so that before the event takes place, the person has an estimated idea of what the cost is going to be. So it's just an estimate, but it's the best we can do before. So if you're using barrels, if you're using porta-johns, anything that DPW has to do, fencing, you're going to be charged for those. We're going to give you the best estimate that we can for the event.
Okay. And are they required to give a deposit or anything like that towards expenses? Like, how do we know that they're actually going to pay us?
Well, right now, our community events, we don't request any payment. So that's why we put in this $100, $250, $400, so that we have that. But what City Manager O'Toole mentioned during this is that we could say that we have to have the minimum of at least what it shows that our estimate is paid prior to the event, and then we will bill you for any additional. And we would take it as a credit card, not a check, because they can cancel those.
Okay,
I mean, and this is just still in the early phases, but that's what we had discussed in our meeting.
right. And application fees do not go toward expenses, correct? Those are just internal.
Correct. That's just the cost for us to administer the process.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure that I clarified that that's what I heard her say. The other big part I had was when we talk about waiving fees for nonprofits. I feel like that's a little bit loosey-goosey on how that's worded.
Is that an official term?
It is.
Okay.
Just because there's things that we talk about, costs associated with nonprofits performing work. So, like we had the food truck event that happened before. There was an element of it being for the benefit of a nonprofit, but that was really a for-profit business advertising. So I guess I want to understand how that splits off.
I would personally like to see some stronger parameters and some council guidance from you all on what sort of limits we'd like to establish for what events would receive or not receive a waiver of fees. Because I agree, there's probably been some inconsistency in our decision-making in the past, and not very clear guidance to staff on what would qualify, so we can't even guide organizations when they reach out to us to know if something's going to be a fee waiver situation or not. We do try to address it a little bit, but I guess it's kind of intentionally left open-ended in this draft specifically because we want to have that conversation.
Well, in those policies, those events would come to council, so you could either approve them or deny them. So, I mean, it doesn't have to say all of these are okay and all of these are not, but when they come to you, that gives you the ability to say yes or no.
Right. I just want to give people the best guidance we can so that they don't come to us with an idea that's not really within our guidance of what we want to see for the community. So because then it looks like we're saying no to certain people. So I think understanding what that is and everybody being on the same page.
Well, and we were actually talking about for the community events that we do yearly, so we're going to be bringing those here shortly. So that might be a good time to work those together so that we have one for the ones that are yearly approved and the ones that are, that everybody needs to know what those are, because it does get confusing, even for me. And they say, can I go to council? And say, sure, you can ask council for anything. Doesn't mean they're going to say yes.
Correct. And so the only other thing that it does, that I did not see listed was under the vendor license agreements. We talk about food trucks having the county health, but don't they have to have a city permit also?
Yes.
Should be added without objection.
Well, I guess the vendor license is more for food and beverage vendors maybe at the events. It's not specifically geared towards food trucks, but so maybe we need to add like a whole paragraph on food vendors.
Right.
Well, that would be under the food truck permit. They would have to get a separate one for that because we do background checks, so they are required to pay the $10 per employee background check, so.
Is that expressly stated in the policy?
I think we could easily add a line or two in there that just says,
Yeah.
food truck vendors will be subject to our food truck ordinance and
Our permit.
application process.
Perfect. Thank you very much.
Just two things. So to Councilmember Dillon's point about duration, I concur. I think it should be a 60-day minimum. Community events are important, but they are not essential. I think 30 days is a very tight turnaround, especially if we have a time-sensitive project underway or if we have a staff vacancy or understaffed. So I would prefer 60 days as opposed to 30. As it relates to the point that City Manager O'Toole just articulated, this will obviously need some fine tuning, but my opinion would be council, the city, would waive fees when an event has a clear and unambiguous benefit to the community, and/or we can confirm with relative certainty that an entity is holding an event and it is actually benefiting a legitimate nonprofit. Of course, again, that's going to need some fine tuning, and you'll have to extrapolate on legitimate, but for the latter, I would cite as an example, and I think it was inferred earlier, this event that took place, the food truck rally at Mill Pond Park this past summer. This is not a pejorative statement, but that was largely due to promote MI Homes and Angelina Farms. No shame in that. But it was also pitched as a benefit to Saline Social Services. I personally would be inclined potentially to waive certain fees for an event like that if it could be proven that, in fact, those dollars or proceeds were benefiting a legitimate nonprofit in our community. But again, that's just my opinion, and that would certainly need some fine-tuning and finesse. Mr. Gearbaugh, questions or comments regarding the policy?
Sure. First one, we talk about how this process and for you to track and everything. Is it a potential to put it in BSA, just like our permit, so that all of it's being monitored?
Yes, we've discussed having this permit created online to make it a little bit easier and to allow individuals to pay.
Okay, great. When we talk about the 60 days, I guess clarifying on that, 60 days before the event, 60 days before it comes to council?
60 days before the event.
So then in clarification for that, what will be the internal deadlines to make sure that when we get it as council members?
I mean, when we receive an application, it's generally within a week or so that it's on a council meeting, so.
Try to turn it around for the next council meeting, whenever we get it,
Okay.
in case there's changes or questions.
I just want to make sure that if it's within 60 days, it doesn't show up the council meeting prior to the event.
Yeah, I wouldn't anticipate that's an issue.
Of course, as we talk about cost containments and so forth with all of our annual events, and I think that's going to be one of the issues I want to talk about later at the next meeting. Just whatever we can do in this one, I'm looking at it from the perspective of all these refunds and the application fees and such, so I don't want to see this become a really complex approach, and whatever we can do to make it effective, and I think having these deadlines and so forth, but as we start getting into fees and days and things like that, it starts getting difficult to enforce that if we're not consistent, so just more the process, not necessarily the policy on that, but I want to make sure it's simple and not complicated for the individuals. And then, there was a question about, what was the other two items you mentioned, Mayor, 60 days and?
Colleen, or should.
Clarifying on the nonprofit. I've already asked Manager O'Toole earlier if we could have a legal opinion on that. My concern is that, again, we should not be using taxpayer dollars to fund specific nonprofit organizations unless it's part of a greater city event, like we've been doing similar to Main Street, where we do provide them money, and there's a combination there, it's a little clearer. But when we start getting into individual nonprofits, I think we're going to run against state of Michigan requirements and so forth, because I've run into this a number of times. You got to be very careful of how you use that money for those kind of purposes, and just make sure that we have a legal standing on it, not to be accused of potentially misusing
Can I
taxpayer dollars.
Can I stop him right there? I think that's probably a good point. It's always best to err on the side of caution. Unless there's disagreement from the dais, I would empower the city manager to move forward and get that legal opinion to report back. So
Yeah.
some insight from legal counsel would be valuable.
And I do have some experience with this subject, so I can kind of anticipate what the comment will be. That it really goes back to your statement, Mayor, which is that any involvement between the city and a nonprofit needs to revolve around an actual community benefit. Ideally, a service that the city itself would normally provide, but simply doesn't.
Yeah, because I look at that, and there could be a number of different organizations, including religious and other ones that potentially could cross.
We do specifically state that we will not waive fees for political, religious, lobbying, or any other groups that would not align with our non-discrimination ordinance.
Thank you. I already recall that. That's That's it for me right now.
Is it? Okay. Mr. Delarco, comments, questions regarding the draft policy?
Just comments cropping out of the discussion here at the dais this evening. If we decide that we're going to make 60 days the cutoff for applications being submitted, then what the fee schedule just goes away and it just becomes a default $100 application fee for everyone? Is that what follows?
Yeah, I would probably take another look at it, but I think that would be logical.
Is that enough to cover the costs of, I saw this as an incentive to get the applications in by 60 days, but
We could change it, so like if you get it in with 90 days or more notice, that we do the $100 and then the higher cost of the 60 days.
that seems reasonable, yeah, from my perspective.
Anything else, Mr. Delarco?
No, that's it.
Okay, let me jump back to the other side of the dais. Acknowledging the comments and discussions that have been had, Councilmember Kraus, is there anything that you would like to add regarding this draft policy?
No, I'm in agreement with what Ms. Dillon has said, brought up already.
Mr. Khmer Sulak?
I have nothing further. I think these improvements are appropriate.
Mr. Seal?
Two things. It always comes up. Perhaps we ought to state, when we state days, calendar days. So people aren't confused. Business days or whatever, calendar days. And then the other one was, I'm sorry, you caught me half paying attention. Did you say that if the fee is waived if we don't approve it? The
That they're
request?
refunded. We refund their fee, any fees, if they're not approved.
We
And I
still-
don't know, I understand what you're going to probably say, which is our staff has already done work. So I don't know, figuring out some piece to that, I don't know.
Half the fee, maybe?
I don't know what would be,
I don't know.
I don't know, how does building department work with that? Like, if you file for a permit and you don't get it, you get your
It's
money
gone.
back?
Well, if you look, if it's denied, then we should give it all back, because council, we bring it to you first, so that there's the least amount of work. But for the refund, if they change and they say, we're not gonna do it, then we would probably change the refund policy to where if it was 30 days, they would get half a refund, or something like that, because we had a refund dates in here.
Right.
So we would update that refund policy with the 90 days in our mind, because we started with 60, so this was with our 60 days, so we'll change that too.
Okay. All right. That's all.
That's all, Mr. Seal. Thank you very much. Councilmember Dillon, anything more you'd like to add?
So just talking about fees for a moment, do those numbers actually tie back to anything? Do we know, like, this is how much staff time is involved, and that's why we're sort of like billable hours? Or is it just the threshold that we want to try to hit? I guess trying to understand. I also don't know that I like a difference in time of year for events, because if it's between certain windows of time, we're saying that, you know, we will accept it less than 30 days. And I just feel like maybe we should have one thing, just make it less confusing that this is, I don't understand what the peak season means.
Again, we took this from a different community, so we can get rid of the second column if that would make it life easier. We're just bringing it to you for your opinion. And for the refunds, what this is discussing is that, again, when we get the event, we send them what this is going to cost them after council has approved it, and then we ask them to give us the estimated amount. So we would refund either the full amount or a portion of that amount that the DPW has used, the police, after, if they canceled.
Okay. So just so I'm clear and understand, I want to host an event. I fill out the application form, I submit it to you. You start working through the departments, you get a full application, then you bring it to council for approval, correct? Okay. So then if we don't approve it, we've already expended the effort. So I have to say that I do agree with what Mr. CEO is saying, that we've already expended the effort on behalf of that event. So I don't know how I feel about a refund policy at that point.
We wouldn't refund the $100 application fee or the $350 for the later one. We would refund the portion that is the DPW, police, and fire.
So now I'm a little more confused, I apologize. So when are they paying that fee?
After council says
Yes.
yes, then I tell them that they need to pay that fee. If they choose to cancel at that point, then we give them a portion of their fees back.
Okay.
Because our DPW, our police have already looked at how much time this is going to take, how much, how many employees they're gonna need. So they're only getting a portion of their, what they paid the city back.
Okay, but I'm not sure how that would work with like our third party. Like if we ordered porta-johns and we canceled them, are we still going to? I don't want to get into where we're on the hook, where there's already been a schedule of police officers and they're anticipating overtime and now the event's been canceled and yet that piece. So I don't understand how that works from the backside, so I would look to your guidance for that.
That is a good point, and I will get with Priscilla and find out what that cutoff is, and then that's what we will use for the, the percentage that you will get back after so many days. Because if we have ordered the porta-johns and we're not getting anything back, or we can't get any refund off of that, then we will charge them the full amount.
Right. And the other thing that this policy does not address, I apologize because I just thought of it, is like weather. I mean, we're not responsible if it's a catastrophic, weather incident and the event has to be canceled, correct?
Yeah, I mean, that would fall under a last-minute cancellation regardless of the reason. But we could certainly state specifically that, we're not responsible for cancellations due to inclement weather.
Right.
Anything else, Ms. Dillon?
The only other last thing is when we talk about cancellations, do we allow for rain dates?
Now, I don't know if we specifically addressed it in this policy.
The only thing I've ever had for rain dates are block parties, but everything else has been a set date.
Like alternative dates, you mean? Yeah, like if it rains on Saturday, they hold it then on Sunday.
Oh, okay.
So just food for thought, thank you.
Very good. Mayor Pro Tem Gearba, anything else?
Just one question, and kind of helps with the public and even the individuals that would be applying for this, is to understand some examples. So the block party, give me an idea what that would cost somebody decides to apply for it.
The block party, you only get charged for what you are required to pay for the DPW. So if DPW sends out cones, Priscilla will bill them for those cones, delivering and pickup. We don't have an application fee for the block party, and there's not anything usually from the police or the fire department, although they do both look at the applications so that they know what roads are going to be closed and when. But the only thing that block parties usually get fees for is for the DPW.
So primarily, the intent of this is to go for bigger events that are on city property or events that are large party, like weddings, as you mentioned.
Right.
Because one of the ideas is we want to continue to support and hopefully encourage those type of things like block parties, neighborhood involvement, those type of things. So, okay, glad to hear that. Thanks.
Mr. Delorco, anything else?
I have nothing else.
And a question for the city clerk and/or city manager. You received a lot of feedback this evening. When do we expect that a subsequent or second draft would be back for council consideration?
We could bring it back to the next meeting, but it depends upon when we get the attorney opinion. Once we get that, we will bring it back to the next.
So a reasonable expectation then would be, if not our next meeting in October, then certainly our first meeting in November.
Yeah, I think we'd like to aim for the next meeting in October, just so that we can start getting this information out here and collecting people's applications for next year. So we'll plan to put it on the agenda as an action item but try to disseminate the draft just as soon as we have that legal opinion.
Very good. Anything else before staff, before we wrap up? Then the chair would be delighted to entertain a motion to adjourn this work meeting at 6:32 PM.
So moved.
Moved by Kamara Sulak, seconded by Gearbaugh. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say nay. Ayes have it. This meeting is adjourned. We will reconvene to regular session promptly at 7 PM.
You said, not to-
I'd like to call the Saline City Council meeting to order. If you'd please rise and join us for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much. Okay, members present this evening are actually Council members Kamara Sulak, CO, Del Orco, Dillon, Kraus, Mayor Pro Tem Gearbaugh, and myself, Mayor Marl. From city staff, we have City Manager O'Toole, Clerk Royal, Assistant City Manager Getzman, and Wastewater Treatment Superintendent Briggs. The rest of you who are in the audience this evening, we welcome you. We encourage you to sign in on the back table. There are hearing devices on the back table, along with copies of tonight's agenda. Mayor Pro Tem Gearbaugh, I believe you wanted to approve the agenda as amended, moving up our discussion on water and sewer rates to immediately following public comments. Is that correct?
Correct, I'll make that motion.
Okay, is there a second for that motion?
I'll second that.
Seconded by Kraus. I'll get you on the next one, Councilmember Dillon. All those in favor of approving the agenda as amended signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, say nay. Ayes have it, the motion carries unanimously. There are no absences, so we'll dispense with that motion. So we come now to citizen comments on agenda items under the Open Meetings Act. Any citizen may come forward at this time and make comment or question on an item that appears on this agenda. Comments will be limited to 3 minutes per person. Anyone who would like to speak is requested but not required to state his or her name and address for the record. And before I yield the floor to the first public commenter, because we have many new faces in the audience this evening, you will be given 3 minutes. You'll be able to speak on agenda items in just a moment. And then again, at the end of our meeting, we generally do not respond in real time, but we will address probably most, if not all, of your questions and comments and concerns when we transition to a subsequent action item or discussion item. So we have at least one written comment. We'll read that at the end. So we'll open the floor at this time if there is any citizen, resident who would like to come forward and speak to any item that is enumerated on tonight's agenda. And again, you will have 3 minutes.
Mary Hess. And regarding the disposal plant, of which we do need and have needed for years, but the increase, I feel that the taxpayers' money should be used, in fact, for the safety and welfare of its citizens. As far as other things, those are just the drapery and the curtains on the window. As far as the rec center, years ago, since the city of Saline is responsible for the rec center, we had a cut rate. And then about 7 years ago or something, all of a sudden, the area turned into the school district, which is about 100 square miles. And if you didn't live in the school district, you had to pay higher. So the taxpayers of Saline got to pay for the bonds that have been passed and the cost, and plus they get no cut rate at all. It's like double dipping. And as far as the township, years ago, the township people that have city water and sewer, not years, up until 3 months ago, if they had city water and sewer and they were in the township taxes, they paid triple the charge. I asked during a public session about that, and apparently now they won't be paying triple, they'll be paying the same thing I'm paying, which is not fair because many of these township properties are islands. And as far as I'm concerned, they should be annexed or get their own water and sewer. And I think that it's ridiculous that some of the people have been they're talking $500 to $1,000. And that is unbelievable and so sad. And I really think we better cut our pretties and our window dressings.
Thank you. Are there additional citizen comments on agenda items, please?
Hi, everyone. Nicole Rice from the North Ann Arbor Historic District. I just want to read from our newsletter, which has very similar language to the last July newsletter, and this is what has been referenced throughout the day today and yesterday as our official information from the city regarding the rate increase. I'm going to skip the first paragraph. We'll go to the second one. These costs include 2 types of charges: consumption charge, use charge, $1 per 1,000 gallons, which covers operations for the well, tower, water plant, and sewer plant. 2, readiness to serve charges, based on meter size, which provides for water and sewer capital costs to provide adequate service to the area. The usage charges will be a variable factor for homes and businesses and will reflect water and sewer related activity for a particular user. The RTS and bill CH for both water and sewer are equivalent to a minimum quarterly charges regardless of whether or not any water was used, since the entire water and sewer system is continually in operation and has related costs. I have no idea what that means. Thanks.
Thank you. Any additional citizen comments on agenda items, please?
Yeah, this is Mike Brown. I was the last child born in the city of Saline, along with Sarah Esch. One thing about water is it's usually one of your cheaper bills, but this is going to hurt people. This is going to hurt people that want to move into the area, that are young and starting out, and it's going to hurt people on fixed incomes, especially the elderly. It's going to hurt me when I retire. It's too much of an increase. It's too fast. It needs to be drawn out over a long period of time. I think that's the biggest problem is people, it's like smacking somebody in the face. At least tell them ahead of time you might smack them in the face so they can hold their hand up. It's a hell of a hit to take. People are on fixed incomes. We have inflation, which is hurting people left and right. This is too much. We have to find other areas to pay for this. You know, I've heard about walkways in Mill Pond Park and things like that. It's like, put flowers in Mill Pond Park, you know, trim the trees in Curtis Park. But don't sit there and throw all this money there. I don't even go to the rec center anymore because they're not open when I need to go there. But we throw money at that rec center. We don't ever change the leadership so that it improves. We don't improve the building itself. There's many things you can do to make that, you know, functional, actually bring in money, but we don't do it. You know, I don't give two shits about the Celtic Festival. I don't give two shits about the rec center. I care about the people in Saline. And we really don't. You guys are doing kudos. Let's open another park. No, let's fix Curtis Park that was given to us and is in disarray. It looks crappy. You can't even see the river. You guys don't maintain it. You guys think mowing a park is maintaining it. It's not. You need to go to Holland and walk through the parks or anywhere. It's ridiculous. It's a bad expenditure of money. And I don't know if you're throwing all things at Rentschler or throwing all things at the rec center or what's going on. But I feel like it's a mismanagement of money. And it needs to be addressed because you're hurting people. That's why these people are here. And there's a lot more people that want to be here. So, thank you.
Thank you for comments. Additional citizen comments on agenda items?
Toby Crotty, and I'm a little new at this, but first I want to say, no, nothing against you, but it's going to hurt him. It's already hurting me. I've lived in the city for over 25 years. I live in a very small, older neighborhood, and this city is pricing me out of being able to spend my retirement and my wife's retirement in this town. This increase in the water bill, and I'm one of the lucky ones, mine only went up 90%. The last information that I had, and excuse me if I'm wrong, but we were told via the Sun Times or the Saline Post that we could expect maybe up to an $80 increase. Mine went up 160 plus. And then we have to digest the escalated system that's going to come in years coming. The city is pricing the middle class out of being able to afford and stay here and invest into their community. I have a strong, strong passion, as Mr. Marl knows, about this city and the misappropriation of funds, why we need brick pavers everywhere we build something, why we need to go over and beyond. Somebody on Facebook or Nextdoor or something said last night that I thought was just really, really hit the point. Why should I plant flowers in my yard when I can't even think of being able to water them? Why should we care about the appearance of our communities when we, as taxpayers and citizens, can't afford to do anything? I am thoroughly disgusted with this whole process because, in my opinion, this is a result of years and years of neglect on the city government's behalf of managing the maintenance of our infrastructure to where the citizens living here today, or all of these extra developments that are coming in, you're going to price yourselves out. You're going to have these developments, and they're going to be empty because nobody is going to want to come to Saline because of the added costs. We're already paying taxes similar to Ann Arbor. We're now obviously paying more in water than even Ann Arbor pays. I, for one, sorry if this is a little over the top, am thoroughly disgusted with city government and laying an antiquated problem on current citizens. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments, Mr. Crotty. Any additional citizen comments on agenda items? You will have 3 minutes.
Shelley Andrews, I'm in Torwood. I, share the same concerns as everybody else here. I went back through Saline Post to see, what was promised to us. The $80 to $90 average increase was something that I noted. And I know that things change. The pandemic plays into this. There was another quote about how these would be eased in to the tune of, a 60% increase over 5 years. My bill, when I got it, was a 54% increase this time. Comparing this period to last year's period. I run my sprinklers, so ours, for a couple of periods are always, higher than normal. But comparing it to last year, the same year, it went up $700. My bill is for $1,300 for 3 months. That's, for water, $3,000 plus a year? Are you kidding me? Yeah, I'm not watering my lawn anymore. Forget it, so this is crazy. And I too wonder about the neighborhoods we got going in around here. Everywhere you look, there's a neighborhood. There's a Pulte Home neighborhood going in. Andalina Farms is already sold out. I mean, these aren't estimates. These aren't things you have to wonder if you're going to sell, and you know how much money is coming into your city. If these places are sold out, you know how much revenue is going to be coming in. That shouldn't be coming on us. That should be spread out. It should be forecasted more accurately. And I agree that, it does seem like things are being mismanaged here. You need better forecasting, you need better planning, you need better, just better planning for this stuff. This is crazy. I mean, I can afford to pay this, but I don't want to pay this. I don't want to pay $20,000 a year just to live in Saline, with my taxes and my water. That's crazy. Exactly. You can't really afford it. So, thank you.
Thank you for your comments.
Hi, my name is Josh Sager. I live at 743 North Harris Street here. So, same concerns. My thing to kind of talk about was my bill. I have a family of 5, young family. My bill went up over 75%, and my bill was $486.32. She's across the street, a family of 3. Her bill's $486.32. And apparently, I just got texted by a buddy of mine, but there's a 7 p.m. news story on the TV tonight.
Talking about.
On Channel 7, talking about Saline's water bill, and the gentleman that was presenting on the news tonight his bill was $486.32.
It was the headline on the 6 o'clock news on WXYZ.
So, I don't know much about the water system and how it works, and quite frankly, I've never really paid close attention to it. I just pay it like a lot of us do. But when I noticed my bill was the exact same as my neighbors across the street.
To the T, though, I mean, him and I were just
Yeah.
out, chatting, I'm like, how much was your bill, right?
Right.
And him and I, it's like, we can afford it. Anna McIntyre that lives across from him, but I'm coming in here for like my grandparents' sake. They live in Plymouth, they don't live here, but I'm coming in here for people that are on a fixed income, and I'm just trying to understand it better. But when him and I looked at our bills, and every single thing to the penny is exactly the same, we kind of found that odd, right?
Just thought it was worth noting, because I was always under the understanding the water bill went by a meter, right? I don't think that's a coincidence. And just one last note, as a person, on a personal level, I think we all can see eye to eye that the increases are pretty significant.
Yeah.
With costs going up, a family of 5, family of 3, whatever it may be, your grocery bill's $100 more a week, your water bill's another $200 for the quarter. These are significant increases. You're putting another couple $100 in your gas tank. This hits hard for a family. I have a 7, 5, and 3-year-old. So this doesn't just impact, disposable income. It impacts a monthly budget for a house. So just something to think about.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Any additional citizen comments on agenda items?
Jeff Shire, Wildwood Trail. I am here to echo much of the same comments that have been made. I understand I have to pay my fair share. I'm not actually concerned with the increase, like the 65%. I mean, no one wants to pay that, but that's not the issue. My bill went up from like between $200 and $300 to $1,300 this last 3 months. In fact, like my wife and I, it's just my wife and I at home. We don't even have kids or anything else. We went through our water bill and we haven't been there that long, but just to give you an idea, like the usage has been like 6,000, 14, 13, 15, 13, 10, 13, all the way down. And then you get to like this month and it goes from like 23 from last billing period to 62. That is in no way correct. When you look at the bills, in fact, the most recent one is an actual reading. Based on the previous comment, I would believe that the water meters have not been being read for a long time properly, and that now we're just finally getting the balanced billing now that we're actually on the issue of working on the wastewater treatment plant, replacing meters and everything else. I spent today going through the entire city of Saline trying to find someone to help. And I was rebuffed at every single place I turned. I was told I had to come to the city council. I need you to understand that that's also something that's a problem. Citizens should not have to wait every 2 weeks to take an issue up like this with their city government, especially considering the fact that we're given 30 days to pay the bill. Right? Something doesn't need to change. I have 2 other additional things that are related to this as well. I need to get on the public record the fact that the other 2 initiatives that the city of Saline is having us do, replacing the water meters as well as the cross-contamination. This morning I had a plumber over in order to take a look at the complaints that were, the people who inspected the cross-contamination. I was told by a licensed plumber that what they were requiring me to do wasn't actually appropriate or possible. In fact, he says that it's not consistent with actual Michigan plumbing code. It's above, that's fine, and I'm okay with going above code, but not when it involves fees and the sorts of things that we're talking about outlined in the letter. The second thing that you need to understand, with regards to the water meter replacement, the letter that was sent out, the tools on there do not work in order to actually schedule water meter replacements. I called, I've used the website, and it says that we don't have your account number, there's nothing to do. That was the information I was given. When I called the number, they also could not find me. It took them time in order to find it. Council needs to be aware that besides the increases, besides the billing irregularities, there are additional problems with the initiatives set forth by the city of Saline that need to be addressed as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeff. Real quick, I'm going to deviate from my standard protocol. You're fine, Jeff. You can take a seat. If you contacted city offices today with questions, concerns about this issue or any other, and you were rebuffed, that is wildly inappropriate, and I apologize. for the record, and there are many people who have reached out to me on my personal cell phone at all hours of the day, all days of the week. My number is 734-272-3654. You can call me on my direct line here, 429-4907, extension 2213. City Treasurer's in the audience, Al Cole. Would you please raise your hand? If you have a question about utility billing or usage, her extension at 429-4907 is 2203. And of course, if you don't know where to direct an inquiry, you're always welcome to call the city manager. She's very accessible. Extension is 2211. Very good. Okay. Thank you.
My name is Mark Weaver, 312 North Ann Arbor Street. My bill, $486.32, same as the others. And the other thing I had to say was, it's a gift, huh? And I had scheduled to get the meter replaced today between 11 and 12 o'clock. They never showed up at all. I called the number on the piece of paper, and they rescheduled for Thursday, but they give me a 4-hour window this time. So now I have to stay for 4 hours at my house and wait for these people, so, but it's all a mess. Thank you.
Appreciate your comments, Mark. Thank you. Any additional citizen comments on agenda items?
Hi, I'm Lindy Dyack, 585 Huntington Drive. Appreciate Mayor Marl, you speaking with, or trading voicemails, I guess, today, and some of you I've conversed with on the Saline Post site. I did already submit an email on behalf of my community as well, which is Huntington Woods. But just listening to some of the other residents in here, I thought I would kind of share what some of my other neighbors shared with me about their increases today, as we've all been talking about it. So I had two neighbors who have water meters who reported $520, another was $737. Those of us without meters were at $18.42. That's myself. I watered for 20 days in the month of August, and that's the only time that I watered because I didn't even have my irrigation system turned on until then. And the only reason I watered was because my grass was turning brown and I didn't want to get a letter from my subdivision about my lawn being out of policy. I had three other neighbors report $2,074, $900, and $1,900. I backed into the calculations, kind of, finally saw the chart that was provided in that update letter from July, which I didn't recall seeing before. I've maybe seen those before. I didn't recall seeing that one. But what I find curious is somehow, mostly in the month of August, I had this increase when I was watering. I have used the same amount as when I first moved into my house 2 years ago, and my system was going and my sod was put down. And the time period there was, 3 months where I believe, okay, I used all of that. But now in this time period for only 20 days, apparently I used the exact same amount, which was 99,000 gallons. Something is off to me there. So where people are saying they're getting billed the same amount, I question whether or not this is my true usage and whether or not the meters have been accurate. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you. Any additional citizen comments on agenda items?
Eric Grossman, as a past city employee, I thought I would throw some historical insight in this, and I was in the water department for 30 years, so I thought I'd read this. With the current uproar over the water and sewer rates, I thought I'd relate the past practice that might help ease tensions with residential ratepayers. Of the 4 billing quarters, the summer billing cycle has always been the most contentious. The reason for this is the water used for irrigation purposes is charged for sewer, when in fact it never enters the sewer system and the city receives funding for a sewer process that doesn't actually take place. In Saline, the past procedure, and many cities still operate this way, is to not charge a sewer rate on the water above the normal average consumption during the summer billing cycle. For instance, a home that uses 15,000 gallons in a normal quarter but uses 25,000 during the summer quarter would not be charged a sewer rate on the 10,000 gallons that is above the average use. This procedure was replaced with optionally purchased residential sprinkler meters. Commercial and apartment buildings had more irrigation meters because they were not eligible for the residential sewer relief charges. And some residents purchased separate meters for year-round seasonal use, but that was not that many residents at that time. So then the question is, could this procedure be fairly applied as either a one-time application? You currently have all the information needed to do so, so you could apply it that way, or perhaps a hybrid approach in the future billing process. But to be fair to those residents that invested in a dedicated water sprinkler meter, one possibility is to do a percentage of the higher than average consumption, perhaps 75, for instance, 75%, might be reasonable in this current situation, and then those with a dedicated meter would still receive 100% relief from sewer charges. Bear in mind, anyone who irrigates is paying a sewer process fee that rightfully shouldn't be charged, and the cost of a dedicated meter is very expensive for the average user. So perhaps a hybrid formula could be developed. Options should be investigated for those who irrigate on a modest scale or are of limited means to purchase a dedicated meter. One example might be 50% of water used above the normal average would not be charged for sewer during the summer months. Can I just finish this?
Please.
But if you do irrigate frequently or want 100% of your charge minus the sewer, then investing in a separate meter makes a lot of sense. With smart meter technology, it's not difficult to differentiate between plumbing issues, the creation of high consumptions like a leaky toilet that enters the sewer system from high usage that is can be easily detected and separated from irrigation uses through the smart meter technology. Residents are paying for this technology upgrade, and it seems only justified that this technology fairly and accurately accounts for their usage. Smart meters capture patterns in water flows. Computer software programs analyze those patterns and can give a pretty accurate account of how the water is used.
Thank you, Mr. Grossman. Yep. If you have paperwork on the city's former policy or approach regarding these issues, I would be delighted to review that. Thank you. Additional citizen comments on agenda items.
Thank you, Eric. My name is Bernard Miller from Philadelphia in Saline. I just wanted to say all of you here are great. You're here doing what you're supposed to do. But every other time I come here and the chamber is literally empty. You are participating in government, and these people are your duly elected officials. I want to just say, give yourself a hand. But as far as I'm concerned, you know what? I don't really care about the people who have irrigation. I care about the elderly that cannot afford to pay their bill. You know, if you got sprinkler, that means you have excess capital. And to me, that's a non sequitur. And I'd just like to thank all of you for showing up and try to attend more city council meetings because they do listen. Thank you.
Thank you, Bernard. Any additional citizen comments on agenda items? One last call. Anybody else like to speak? Oh, please. Last call. You'll have an opportunity at the end as well.
Christopher Emilio, 201 West Henry Street. Water, the necessity of life and life-giving. My family and I have been Saline residents for 20-plus years, and our water and sewer increased by 80%. This could not have come at a worse time from the standpoint that as inflation is at a 40-year high right now, as well as being on the brink of a recession. People are having a hard time affording the necessity of life, including gas, food, medication, paying their bills. This increase you place on the residents and businesses will cause a number of people to leave our town and move to a less expensive city. The only solution is to undo this punitive increase on our residents and to seek federal assistance to fix our water and sewer system. And Mayor Morrow, I think you actually have some information on that too, I think. Thank you.
Any additional citizen comments? Please.
Good evening, Ken Pickles, Wheeler Court. Our bill went up to $682. Previously, in 22, it was $152, $296, and $220. Both me and my wife are educators. We chose to live in Saline. That's an imposition of whether you're a fixed elderly person on a fixed income or educators trying to just get by. And I agree with many of the comments. I think we need to look at what our priorities are, but more importantly, you have to do something for the people of Saline whose bills have gone up astronomically. Thank you.
Thank you, Ken. Any additional citizen comments on agenda items? One last call. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, the comments you had in writing were, that individual actually spoke during the public comment period. Okay. One last call, folks. No? Okay. We appreciate everyone's comments. We are going to actually transition immediately into a discussion of water and sewer rates. That may bleed over to the towards the end of the agenda, and we do have some infrastructure-related items enumerated as action items under new business, and I suspect that these dialogues and discussions will continue at future meetings as well. City Manager O'Toole, I think between Councilmember Dillon and myself, we asked that this be added as a discussion item. You and I chatted about it today. I shared some of the concerns that I had received that have been posted on social media and elsewhere. Do you want to make a few comments, and then we can open up for questions and additional thoughts from the dais?
Certainly. I sincerely appreciate everyone's comments here tonight and thank anyone who reached out to our staff today to learn more about utility billing. I will say, if you did not receive satisfactory customer service from a member of the city team, that is something I immediately want to know about. So please don't hesitate to reach out to my office. Customer service is a high priority for our organization, and we really value treating our residents with respect. Just, I think, a quick primer on utility billing and the reasons behind some of these rate increases would be helpful. So first, to clarify, hopefully, the point of how our billing is made up. Like many other communities, it's two components. There's the ready-to-serve fee and the commodity charge. The ready-to-serve fee is a fixed flat rate fee that's charged regardless per meter, and the commodity charge is a fee that's assessed on every 1,000 gallons of water. And we do a whole 1,000 gallons, so it's actually fairly common for bills to be exactly the same amount because there's a typical amount of usage that most households use. If you have two bathrooms, if you have, two bathrooms and a kitchen, regardless of if there's 3 or 4 people in there, that rate is fairly standard. The ready-to-serve fee is generally used to fund capital costs associated with the distribution and collection system, while the commodity charge is used to fund operations. So the average household in Saline looks like it uses about 13,500 gallons on a quarterly basis. This is the numbers that we use to make our assessments when we did the rate study to figure out the average impact. For households using that average or more, the commodity charge is likely to be the larger of the two costs associated with your bill. I think everyone at the dais certainly knows, but hopefully our residents have been in the know on this. But over the last couple of years, the city has taken significant strides to improve and invest in its infrastructure, specifically looking more closely at long-range planning and improving the conditions for future sustainability of those systems. One project that we've specifically identified is rehabilitation of our wastewater treatment plant. The first phase of that project is estimated to cost $64 million. Unfortunately, as some have suggested, we can't continue to delay the project because we are under a strict administrative consent order with the state of Michigan to complete the project within a set time frame and return the plant to safe operations. To address planning for those costs, though, the city performed a rate study earlier this year. Again, the rate study looked at the average resident impact of using 13,500 gallons of water. In that case, the estimated impact was about $81 per quarter. Those rates took effect in June, and thank you to Mr. Grossman for his background. He's absolutely right. The summer quarter is historically the most impactful for residents, where your rates are typically higher than that 13,500 average. The bill that residents just received did include those new rates and hit at the time when water rates, when water usage is at its highest. There's also certainly users that use more than the average, and accordingly, the impact is going to be felt more pronounced in those households. That's definitely true in systems or in households where there's an irrigation system, and very much so in households where there's not a second meter for the irrigation system. So again, as referenced in one of our earlier comments, the city has a practice of allowing residents to install a second meter for their irrigation systems, and we do not charge the sewer rates on those. So the sewer rates are the most impacted of our rate increases. Our water rates are still, I see, relatively competitive compared to other communities, especially of our size, but without a doubt, our sewer rates are approaching some of the higher end. The bill is made up of both water and sewer rates, and I think sometimes that issue is a little bit confusing for individuals. If you can avoid paying the sewer rate on your irrigation system, we would strongly encourage you to do that, and we are happy to schedule a service visit to take a look or to talk with you about installing that second meter. If residents are experiencing high bills and it's not related to an irrigation system, I would definitely welcome you to contact our office and look at your bill history online to compare usage trends. If your usage is dramatically outside of the range of what's normal, we want to schedule a service visit with you. We want to come determine what the cause of that is. For low and fixed income residents especially, the city did recently opt into a countywide program, the county's low income household water assistance program. This offers financial assistance to anyone who might be struggling paying their water and sewer bills specifically. Our office is happy to make the connection, or you can certainly reach out to the Washtenaw County Office of Community and Economic Development directly. There are some income limits for participation, but what we've been told is that if you're near that threshold or you're experiencing an economic hardship, the county wants to hear from you. They want an application, and they hope to find a way to work with people. So there are resources out there for those individuals, and we want you to use those dollars. They're there for you. Last, I guess there's always the possibility that if you had a new meter replacement recently, you may also just be experiencing some uptick due to the increased accuracy, especially if you were in a home that had a much older meter. Those meters tend to get less accurate over time. So we do understand that may have kind of been reflected in some individuals' bills. I will say this, though, no system is perfect. So for folks that are coming into this believing that we don't genuinely want to help, that's not where our heads are at. We generally want to solve any issues. If your usage is dramatically outside of normal, please contact us. Please schedule a call with our Department of Public Works. We will send someone out. We will investigate the issue for you. And if that is not the correct usage, we're not going to make you pay that. We will find a solution. I would like to suggest, though, if council is amenable to that end, that we take action this evening to extend the due date for this quarter's billing so that staff has the time to thoroughly investigate every single concern.
I think that's a very good idea. Did you have a duration in mind? I believe bills are due the 1st of November.
Yes, I would recommend extending by 30 days to the 1st of December.
Okay. Just a few follow-up questions from your statement, City Manager O'Toole, and that was excellent. And let me preface, I know the answer to these questions. I'm primarily asking them for the public's benefit, those in the audience and those who may be watching at home. If a resident homeowner suspects that their meter read is inaccurate, who specifically should they contact?
They should contact the Department of Public Works. So their direct line, I apologize, I don't have it.
5624. 429-5624 would be the direct line at DPW.
And they will schedule someone to come out and take a look.
Okay. And do they also contact DPW to discuss the possibility of installing a second meter in particular if they have an irrigation system?
I believe that call should come first to City Hall because we have an application process for it. But ultimately, they would have to coordinate the actual install with DPW.
And if they were interested in the second meter and they call City Hall, do you want those calls directed to the city treasurer's office?
Yes.
So, City Treasurer Cole. And Treasurer Cole, remind us of your extension at 429-4907.
2203.
2203, very good. One last question for you, City Manager O'Toole. There were some good comments and concerns raised during the public comment period tonight about how the city allocates funds, specifically through the general fund, to parks, to the recreation center, to general government. Do you want to, for the public's benefit, clarify how water and sewer projects are funded versus issues like parks, general government, economic development, et cetera?
Certainly. So really there's, for simplification purposes, three main funds within the city's budget. The first is our general fund, which is the fund that we use for police, fire, administration, finance, parks and recreation. Then there are our enterprise funds. Those enterprise funds are specifically self-sustaining. So rates charged for sewer fees only go to the sewer system. Rates charged for water only go to the water system. The rec center, the rec complex also has its own fund. So the fees generated from membership at the rec center is what's used to fund something like 90% of the rec center's operations. Another small percentage is paid through general fund dollars. Though one thing I think is important to note, in any community, you would have a parks department. In ours, we don't pay for the full parks department out of general fund. That is largely covered by recreation center membership fees.
Very good. I would add two other things before I open it up for comments and questions from the dais. One, a press release went out earlier today for a town hall public meeting we are holding here in council chambers next Wednesday. That's October 12th, beginning at 5:30 p.m. That will last about an hour and a half. We do have a hard stop because Planning Commission uses this space at 7. We'll be talking about a wide array of issues, but we will be doing focused presentations on water and sewer rates, our upcoming street millage, and also a proposed ordinance to regulate rental units and to inspect rental units. That is in person, but it's actually a hybrid event, excuse me. So you can come in and participate in person. You can also participate live via Facebook, and we will entertain questions and comments from both those in the audience here in council chambers next Wednesday, and those who are participating online. The only other thing I would mention, because I think the gentleman in the back made reference to this during his public comment period, it is true. We are aggressively competing for federal and state dollars to help fund repairs and a comprehensive rehab at our wastewater treatment plant. And deriving new funding streams will lessen the burden on our businesses and our residential utility payers. More specifically, we requested this past year, and we will request again an $18 million federal appropriation to rehab our wastewater treatment plant. We also, last week, I believe it was Wednesday, the city manager and I spoke to Gary Peters, Senator Peters' office, and we are soliciting their support for a community grant, funding through the Community Grant Initiative, which is an EPA program. And that grant request will probably be in the 7 to 8 figure range. Those types of requests are often, they're only successful if citizens avail themselves of the democratic process, get involved, contact our legislators in Washington, and advocate that Saline gets its fair share of funding. So there will be more reported on those topics in the ensuing months. I started the work meeting to my right. Let me start now to my left. Councilmember Del Orco, any comments or questions for the city manager regarding water and sewer rates?
I don't have any questions for the city manager, but is there time to make comments?
If you would like to make comments at this time, I would welcome that.
Okay, just for the public's benefit, I want you to know that I'm glad you're all here today and that I hear you. The points that Merrill Marl just made about aggressively seeking federal funding to help us offset the cost of rehabilitating our wastewater treatment plant are critical. And we are doing everything we can on your behalf to procure those funding sources. All of us at this desk have written letters to our senators and congressmen in hopes of obtaining some of these federal funding sources. However, we have not been successful at that thus far. There is a lot of speculation on what's going on right now because some of you, I believe, have errors in your meter bill, and those issues will be sorted out as the DPW investigates those claims. The other thing that I think is concerning for me is that we were all, as a council, given direction by consultants and studies and rate assessments of what to expect from our citizens, what to expect as far as increases that our citizens would see. The numbers that we were given were for the average user at $13,500, that we would see roughly a 34% increase in your quarterly bill. And some of you are coming to us with much higher percentages than that. So from my perspective, I have grave concern that this council may have been sold a bill of goods and persuaded to vote a certain way based on projections that were untrue.
No, you got sold to the farm.
So we will need to look at that further. I myself can see that my bill's percentage increase is higher than what was projected or what was told was going to happen. I will also state for the record that I did vote no for this rate increase at the time that it came through back in May for the very reasons that many of you have stated. I think it places an insurmountable burden on middle class, people that are ill able to afford these changes, and that it's simply a percentage that is too high, and I will continue to lobby on your behalf.
Mr. DeLarco, and I'm going to ask the same question of all six of my colleagues. I also want to revisit the point that the city manager made, because in just a moment I may be offering or accepting a motion from the floor. Are you amenable to her suggestion of extending the due date for this quarter's water and sewer utility bills to December 1?
Absolutely.
Okay, very good. Mr. Gearbaugh, same question to you, and then if you have additional comments or questions, we would welcome those.
Ms. O'Toole, could you provide the information of why we decided to go with an increase at this time because of our needs to assure that we can actually pay for our improvements?
Certainly. So one, as referenced in my earlier comment, we are under a specific timeline per the administrative consent order that we entered with the state of Michigan. One other thing to note is that there actually is legal precedent that we're not required, that we're not actually permitted to raise funds now for future projects. You have to raise funds for the projects that are impacting the users at that time. This was, I believe the city of Ann Arbor got into a little bit of hot water, legally speaking, for doing something like that, trying to create a fund early, which I recognize is somewhat counterintuitive because you're always going to have replacement needs, but that was the legal outcome.
And if we had properly, or in the past, increased our percentages every year higher than what we normally had always done and had tried to attempt this, was smoothing the rates to keep our current payers at a level that we felt was more adequate. Did we I guess the word is, I'm wondering, did we not take into consideration this possibility that we were going to have to pay this high fee?
I mean, I would agree that if you look at the history of operations at our plants, there was not nearly enough dollars or time committed to maintenance of existing equipment that could have reduced or spread out these needs over time.
And we would have had to have more sufficient funds in order to accomplish a lot of those tasks.
Absolutely. Those rate impacts would have had to incur already to get to that point.
And I guess that's where I'm coming from. And I'm not making excuses for past events or whatever, but there has always been this concern about getting things fixed and having sufficient funds to do it. We've always gotten feedback, and I've been here in this community 60 years and my family longer than that. And we understand when we first had a plant built in this town in the 50s, we got significant money from the federal grants, and that's what helped build the plant. We have not seen that kind of money in decades, and the state has not given us money, and the feds are not giving us money. And despite our ability to try and do our own destiny and keep ourselves above board and working on everything, we do not get rewarded for it. We have worked hard as a community to invest and to try and do things. But we're at a point now where we cannot look at this as being something that we can put off. I wish the pandemic had not have happened because we would not be facing this type of thing. I wish we could have had MI Homes come into our city, but it did not. All those revenues are going into the township. That company made a decision not to move forward with us on an agreement that we had settled in court, costing us $5 million towards our plant and potentially giving you a basis to which we could have spread more funds. It did not happen. State legislatures are not helping us with developments. They are planning and allow these package plants to occur, and this is what's going to happen. We end up having to not be able to address for this growth, and we're covering our own expenses. So we have been working hard, and the mayor is with me on this, that we have attempted to try and make this balance to happen and not put it on the shoulders of our citizens that are right here. But the reality is we have to pay for what we have. We're not building for the developers. We're building for our community to move forward. This is not something that any other community hasn't faced this. Saline has. I do understand this fee was high. I voted for it because I want to get this project done. I'm tired of not having a system or having complaints about water quality when we need to have this fixed. If you look at our water rates, though, we are still 20% less on water usage than most communities around here. We only raised it $1 per thousand. There's other communities that are at least $2 more than we are right now, or between $1 and $1.50. So water's not the question. Our sewer infrastructure is the question. And we need to build this so that we are not contaminating our environment, so that we can handle what we're doing, and so we can include for this community in the future to be able to stand this and move forward. If we get these grants, we will reduce the rates, hopefully, that they will not have to be as increased as they are. But right now, we have no guarantees at all from the federal government or from the state that they will give us money. We do have a guarantee that we are qualifying for the revolving fund that will allow us to have a lower interest, but it does not mean that we cannot look to the future and say, oh, it's only going to cost us $15 million. It's going to cost us what it's going to cost us if we want this community to move forward. I understand. I'm retired. I have fixed income. A lot of people do. But at some point, we're going to have to account for what we did these last few years, and a lot of people benefited from that. And so that's where my statement's coming from. I do want to look at, though, the issue of the summer usage from a perspective of maybe doing an average compared to last year. The city of Ann Arbor does that, and so to prevent this hit that was so huge right now, that may be a doable thing. But I cannot, and I will not, sorry, I apologize. It doesn't mean an election campaign or whatever, but reduce the fees. We've got to get these projects done.
Mr. Gearbaugh, thank you for your statement. To City Manager O'Toole's point, amenable to extending the due date for water and sewer bills to December 1?
That's a given.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Dillon, questions or thoughts?
Thank you. As far as questions, I think a lot of them have been asked and answered. Thoughts? Yeah, I mean, I'll be honest, I was expecting, when we talked about this, that I was going to have between an $80 and $90 increase in my water bill. That's what I thought, because I fell within that normal range. I was shocked when I opened my water bill and my sewer charges were more than my last bill total. So yes, but then I started to look a little bit more, and I also realized that we used 7,000 more gallons of water this quarter than we had in the past. So that definitely will increase my bill. So the numbers are not what we'd hoped they would be, without question. I think it took everybody sort of off guard, and we need to reassess that. But at the same time, we need to look, if you're looking at your current bill versus your last quarter bill, there could be a significant change if you were using irrigation, if you were watering your garden, your flowers, you're washing your car, things like that we really need to take into account. That is not, without question, not discounting people that have numbers that are completely off. That's something that we can look at separately. But it's not apples to apples to compare to last quarter. So if we look to the quarter in the last year, that may be, and as Mr. Gearbaugh had mentioned, that may be a methodology that the city can look at this point in trying to figure out a balance of how that we can do this and figure out how we can, understand that. We made a horrible mistake, in my opinion, now looking back on it, and we are human, and we just did not look at it from that point of view, of putting these rates in this particular quarter, this hike. We told the community what it was gonna be. I think what we didn't do is anticipate for all of the people that were irrigating and didn't understand the significant increase in the sewer side of your bill. And so for that, I truly apologize. And there are options. It's been talked about that second meters, if you are going to irrigate, there are second meters. The other thing that we need to look at as a community is whether we should allow homeowner associations to have watering guidelines. You know, whether that needs to exist or not exist. Because that puts an undue hardship on people if they are forced to irrigate. So I would like to look at these things going forward, absolutely. And with that, I will yield.
Okay.
Yes, and without question, extending.
Okay, very good. Appreciate your thoughts. Mr. Seal.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I guess I would like to say to everybody, we hear loud and clear what you're saying. I haven't gotten my water bill yet. I can hardly wait to see what happens because my wife's cousins were visiting with us this summer. And so we had extra house guests in the house. Of course, they're showering and using water and flushing the toilets. So who knows what surprise I have in my mailbox tomorrow. But all that aside, we tried to act as responsibly as we can, considering the impact it was going to have on all the residents in the community. We all are residents of the community ourselves. We pay the same water bills that you folks do. But let me tell you, on tonight's agenda, we have 4 items of new business. 3 of those are expenditures for the water and sewer. And let me read you what those are. First of all, we're paying $39,500 to approve an agreement for financial services with a company who's going to prepare the statements for us to try and obtain money from the state sewer fund, revolving loan fund, so we could get a low interest rate on a loan that we're going to try to engage in on our behalf to rehabilitate the water treatment plant. Second one is a request to approve $230,000 for the cleaning and the hauling of waste that right now is in one of our digester tanks that is not draining properly. We've made many efforts for the city DPW or the city sewer folks to try and clean that tank out using pumps and other traditional methods of cleaning. It's come to the point now where we've been able to identify what the problem is with that tank. So we're having to pay a company to come in, haul the sludge out of there, dispose of it at another wastewater plant. And the cost to us is $230,000 of unanticipated funds that's going to be charged against the wastewater treatment. Third one is $104,800 for an enclosure for a new well. We had one of our wells fail. The casing cracked. We attempted to have it repaired. That repair was not able to be accomplished. So we had to apply to the state for permission to drill a new well. And this $104,800 bill is only to pay for the enclosure for that wellhead. So those are not insignificant amounts of money, folks, that we have to somehow find the funds for to continue to provide you with wastewater treatment functions and clean water when you want it. So it's not that we're trying to spend this money frivolously. We're faced with increasing demands at increasing rates of cost to get these very things done. So I just wanted to make you aware of the kinds of things that we face on your behalf, and that's why we need some of this additional money. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Seal. And Mr. Seal, to the question of extending the due date for this quarter's water and sewer utility bills to December 1st, are you amenable to that?
Absolutely.
Very good. Councilmember Kamir Sulek, questions or comments from you, sir?
Yes, thank you. First off, absolutely, I'm amenable to extending it 30 days. I see all of you, I hear all of you. I'm sorry you have to be here. It is good to see you participating and hearing your voices. It's made us relook, that we're going to look deeper at this and look at the concern of why we were told certain numbers, and that's obviously not the numbers that we're seeing. And it is definitely not what we anticipated. For as long as I can remember, well, at least the last 10 years, it seems like the wastewater treatment plant has been a hot topic, and not something that we're proud of as citizens, as council members. This sewer system is the problem, and the fees. The inadequate maintenance from going back in time, 10, 20, 30, I don't know how many years. It seems like that's what we're paying for. That's not an excuse. That seems to be what it's adding up to. We're going to find out more answers and do our best to resolve this. Colleen and staff have done a phenomenal job on getting to the bottom of a lot of these issues. And I wish I could say that it's not going to cost as much, that there aren't going to be more costs like Mr. CEO just pointed out. I don't want to get my mail tomorrow either, and I've received some emails, but I wasn't expecting to hear the massive increases that many of you have disclosed tonight. And I assure you that we will work towards figuring this out. This is not something we want Saline to be known for, to be on the news for, which has already happened. So I'll leave it at that.
Very good. Thank you, Mr. Kamir Sulek. Councilmember Kraus, comments, questions, and then your thoughts on extending the due date for this quarter's water and sewer utility bills to December 1, 2023.
Yes, on that. It's easy. So I reiterate everything that's already been said. A couple of thoughts that haven't been said. First of all, I'm encouraged to see people here. I'm sorry it came to this to get people more involved. I'm going to issue a challenge to the city of Saline, whoever's watching. There's usually one person at this meeting, and then we make decisions, and then people complain about them. I would love for you guys to get involved before we've had probably 10 meetings on this, including a public comment meeting, a public hearing, which we're required by law to do. No one showed up. And I'm not saying that to dog on anybody. I get it, we're busy. Don't take that the wrong way. The reason I ran is to get involved because I didn't like how things were going. So I encourage us all to try to get involved. I'm super happy that you're here, even though not for the reason that you're here. Couple things. I've only been a one-term person. I'm not rerunning. My family circumstances have changed. And I'm needed more at home with a terminally ill stepfather. So I will not be rerunning. That decision was hard to make, but it was the right one to do. When I got elected 2 years ago, I thought I would come in and fix things. I said, oh, well, why are they doing that? That's way too high, like many of you are today. And while those opinions are extremely valid, there's always more to it. By the time we get to the decision that we make, there's a lot more information that we have digested. Every single one of us on here has read and reread and taken questions and looked to the experts before we got to that decision. And none of us took it lightly whatsoever. That I want to drive home. When we were having these meetings, you're looking at this and you're like, oh my God, are you kidding me, right? It's not like we wanted to do that. But trust that we do take this stuff to heart. There's packets for every meeting that have information from our experts. I see Mr. Rubel in the crowd, who's been with us every step of the way with our wastewater treatment plant, who has who knows this city and our treatment plant, our water, like the back of his hand. So there's always this information that comes in before we get to the point. Like my colleagues, we were thinking $80-ish. I'm like, okay, that's bad, but we can do that. We need a new wastewater treatment plant. We can do that. Shocked when we got our $850 bill. We live on West Henry. I have a family of 5. My stepfather, who has dementia, does not take baths, so he doesn't, so say a family of 4, being honest. I about died, and when I opened the bill, I thought, oh crap, not a good day to be an elected official. So definitely, I mean, yes, it's horrible, and we will work to try to figure out what can be done, not taking any of it lightly. But I do challenge you all to stay involved, come to meetings. I know it's hard when you're working and you got kids and you got competing priorities, but at the last minute, you know, we would love to have if more people came, maybe the decisions would go differently. I don't know. But I do challenge us all to get more involved as we can. It sucks. I'm not happy we did it. I'm sorry. And we'll continue to work to see what we can do. It's the best I got.
Thank you, Councilmember Kraus. Clerk Royal, the Mayor Morrow will offer a motion from the floor to extend the deadline for this quarter's water and sewer utility bills to Thursday, December 1st at 5 p.m. Okay? Seconded by Mayor Pro Tem Gearba. I'll get you on the next one, Mr. Sulek. Is there any additional discussion on that motion? There is none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Ayes have it. Motion carries unanimously. This quarter's water and sewer utility bills are now due no later than 5 p.m. Thursday, December the 1st, 2023. To follow up on 2022, my goodness, I'm jumping ahead of myself. 2022. Mr. Grossman, again, to a statement that I made earlier tonight, if you could get with the city manager or I with whatever paperwork or material you have ASAP, so we can consider the options that you presented this evening, we would appreciate that. I would suggest that water and sewer rates be an enumerated discussion item again when city council reconvenes in 2 weeks, which will be 2 weeks from this Monday here in council chambers at 7 p.m. Again, for the public's benefit, not only those who are in the audience, but those who may be watching or reading about us after the fact. If you believe you had an improper reading this quarter, you'd like to have your meter checked, you should contact DPW at your earliest convenience. In fact, I would recommend first thing tomorrow morning. They usually are answering phones by 8 a.m. Again, that phone number is 429-5624. Again, 429-5624. And in the interim period, if you also have questions or concerns about an additional meter, the city treasurer would be happy to discuss that. Her extension is here at City Hall. The number is 429-4907, extension 2203. Is that correct, City Treasurer Cole? Very good. We are going to transition on to...
Mayor, if I may, just very quickly, Treasurer Cole has also offered for anyone in the audience today, she'll be posted outside in the lobby and is happy to take information or hear any concerns so that we are getting started on those follow-ups.
Very good. And that triggers my memory. Again, if you're interested in doing a deeper dive on this issue, the city budget, our street millage, or our forthcoming rental inspection ordinance, you should attend and participate next Wednesday, 5:30 here in council chambers. We would be happy to address your questions and concerns in a more free-flowing, in an exchange that's a bit more free-flowing than what we're normally accustomed to here at city council meetings. Missing anything? That's good. You will have the opportunity to speak again to this issue if you'd like to stick around. There's a second public comment period at the end of tonight's meeting. And Councilmember Dillon, you had one last item.
I have just one last comment, and I think I see Mr. Searles, Director Searles in the back. And it is just that I believe that the new water meters will have a feature that will alert people to water changes. If you're normally using 10,000 gallons of water and all of a sudden you've used 50,000, there's going to be an alarm that goes off that says, hey, by the way, there's an issue here. So that is something we're really looking forward to, the new meters. So don't be afraid of them. They're actually going to be a better feature that will find these issues before there's a problem. And apparently my time must be up.
And I also believe, City Treasurer Cole, you may have referenced this in today's press release, but you'll be having some extended office hours too if people have questions or concerns. Very good. Okay. Thank you all. Appreciate your time and your attendance. And it was good to hear your concerns. As Councilmember Kraus said, we greatly appreciate public participation. And we ultimately are a better council and a better city when we hear your thoughts, concerns, and receive constructive criticism. So thank you very much. We are now going to proceed to the consent agenda. The following consent agenda will normally be adopted without discussion. However, at the request of any citizen or council member, any item may be removed from the consent agenda for council discussion.
Move to approve as submitted.
Moved by
Second.
CO to approve the consent agenda as submitted. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Kamir Sulak. All those in favor of approving the consent agenda as submitted signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Ayes have it, and the motion carries unanimously. We move on to new business, item 22-250, appointment of Jen McPherson to the Fireworks Committee. This will be a motion to approve the appointment of Ms. McPherson to the Fireworks Committee.
So moved?
Moved to appoint by Dylan. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Kamira Sulak. I'm happy to address any questions or concerns that you may have. As you recall, when we established a fireworks committee probably 2 months ago, there was a vacancy. I was keen to have somebody from the business community represented. Jill Dernan helped facilitate an invitation to Jen McPherson to participate in this committee. I subsequently spoke to her, and she is very enthusiastic and eager to serve. Questions or comments? Mayor Pro Tem Gearbaugh.
This is not a reflection of the individual, it's more a reflection of the issue of the fireworks committee. Again, I do not support this moving forward. I believe it should be an outside organization. Our staff need to be focused on these issues. This was mentioned tonight. Again, there's a number of these committees and things that which we could better dedicate any staff time. And I hope if there is any staff time to this, it's very minimal, or if even minimal, it doesn't exist. We do not have the money to support a fireworks now or in the near future from the general funds. So that's my reason why I'm pulling this off again, and I'm voting no, not because of the individual, but just because of the issue. Thank you.
Yep. And I appreciate that. And as I indicated, I think when we last dealt with this issue, Councilmember Dillon, who's the chair of the Fireworks Committee, I strongly empower her to have a discussion with the group as to whether they want to transition into an independent entity apart from the city. And it is certainly not our goal. We do not have the ability to subsidize or fund fall fireworks or 4th of July fireworks in 2023 through the general fund. This will need to be raised through private donations or corporate sponsorships. Additional questions or comments? Then we have a motion on the floor to appoint. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed, say nay.
Nay.
How many nays were there? I'm sorry. Show me the hands. 3 nays, and that was 4 yeses? Is that correct? Okay. Motion carries 4-3. Thank you. We move on to new business item 22-242, well number 7 enclosure. This will be a motion to acknowledge receipt of the memo from Superintendent Briggs and to approve or not to approve the installation of a well enclosure by Peerless in the amount of $104,800 under the City of Saline Emergency Procurement Ordinance, and to authorize, not authorize, the city treasurer to amend line item 591-536-807-005.
Move to approve and authorize.
Can I get you to acknowledge first, Mr. CO?
Yes.
Okay, it's been moved by CO to acknowledge, approve, and authorize.
I sincerely apologize. That is not the correct line item. It should be 591-999-998-003.
State that one more time for the record. Oh, okay. I'll state it for the record. Excuse me. Thank you, Councilmember Dillon. It's budget line 591-999-998-003. Okay? You still comfortable moving that motion, Mr. CO?
Yes, I am.
So it's
Your Honor.
moved by CO to acknowledge, to approve, and to authorize. And was that a second by Del Orco?
Yeah.
Second, yep.
Del Orco? Okay.
I thought he was asking me. I didn't know you.
Thank you,
No,
Jim.
I didn't.
I thought it was your voice. I may have been mistaken. Mr. Briggs, do you want to make a brief comment regarding agenda item 22-242?
Yes, actually, there's a little mistake in there. It's not Peerless that's doing this work, it's Midwest.
My goodness.
Peerless is drilling the well, and Midwest is doing the enclosure and connections.
Okay, let me defer back, I apologize, to Mr. CO. Obviously, we're striking Peerless because that's not the vendor. It's Midwest. You're still comfortable moving that motion?
I am. We want to pay the right people.
Mr. Del Orco?
Good idea.
Indeed, yes.
Thank you, Bill.
Yep. So, as you know, we had to drill a new well, and this this cost covers the enclosure, making the connections to the original water line and all the power connections also. So,
Very good. Are there questions for our wastewater treatment superintendent? There appears to be none. Bill, thank you. Any subsequent discussion on the motion?
I'm sorry, I do have one
Oh,
question.
please, Mr. DeLorco.
Is this the final thing we need to approve to close out this project, to get the
Yes.
cover on the well?
Yes.
Okay, that's it.
Any additional discussion? Thank you. We have a motion on the floor, then moved by CO, seconded by DeLorco to acknowledge, to approve, and to authorize. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Ayes have it, and the motion carries unanimously. We move on to new business item 22-243, wastewater treatment plant digester cleaning wastewater transport. This will be a motion to acknowledge receipt of the memo from Superintendent Briggs and to approve or not to approve a proposal for digester cleaning and wastewater transport services from H&M Environmental, and to authorize, not authorize the city treasurer to amend line item 590-999-998-003 in an amount not to exceed $230,000.
Move to acknowledge, approve, and to authorize.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem Gearba. It's been
I'll
properly
second.
moved to acknowledge, approve, and authorize, and that was seconded by Kraus?
Yes.
Thank you very much. Mr. Briggs, the floor is yours.
so as you know, we've discussed, excuse me, we've discussed this a couple of times already about making this digester work. And these are the steps that we have to take to basically, right now we have to get rid of our undigested sludge because we're running out of room. And to be able to finish emptying the digester so we can actually get the other part of the crew to come in and clean it. So.
Very good. Thank you. Thank you, Superintendent Briggs. Questions for our wastewater treatment superintendent? We have several. I'll start with Mr. Kamir Sulak.
Thank you. Mr. Briggs, could you estimate how much, or an approximation, cost increase due to materials and labor that has impacted this project?
I'm not sure I understand. At the wastewater plant for personnel, or do you mean this particular item?
This particular item. I mean, I actually would love the prior question, but I know that would be a real deep dive, and it probably wouldn't be something everybody would want to hear.
So this is obviously an increase because number one, we're having to dispose of undigested sludge. And when it's digested, it actually gets reduced in quantity, and a lot more water can be decanted off. The way it is right now, the solids tend to stay suspended in the water. So we have to get rid of a lot of water in the process of getting rid of 2 to 3% solids in this mixture. So the fact that we've had to, well, on top of everything else, you've got to eliminate the amount of sludge that was in the digester, which is about 400,000 gallons alone. So that would normally just stay in there and you would be working with it. But we've had to basically fill up our flat storage, trying to empty this and try and stay ahead of the sludge that we're manufacturing daily so that we don't have any exceedances going in the effluent waste stream.
Do we track the cost and how often that this service has to be?
Oh, certainly, certainly. Normally, well, this service is really unprecedented right at this point, but the normal digestion or sludge disposal, we track that every time we do it, and we have a good idea what the cost is. We usually have a contract for disposal of that. This cost, just for the disposal of the undigested sludge, is about maybe twice the cost. Just for that, it's about 13 cents per gallon compared to the 6 or 7 cents a gallon we were doing the regular land application with sludge.
Okay.
So, and that's just for that part. And then there's the trucking involved. Normally, the money we're paying for disposing of the regular sludge is the trucking itself. Well, this is, you have to truck it and pay to somebody else to take care of it.
So there's more costs all around.
Definitely.
And would you say this is a trend in a lot of the services and projects that you're encountering?
It is, because we're encountering things all the time. It's becoming very frustrating. But I'm hoping we get over the hump on this one and things calm down a little bit as far as sludge hauling goes.
Okay, I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
Very good, thank you, Councilmember Kamara-Stulak. Councilmember Delorco, did you have a question for our wastewater treatment superintendent?
I do. Hi, Bill. How are you doing?
Oh, fair.
So Superintendent Briggs, I recall that recently, within the last year, we drained and cleaned the digester to make some sort of repairs. I believe it had something to do with welding, to restore the digester to normal working condition. And I'm wondering what occurred then and how that's different from what's happening now as it was so recently.
Well, that was the plan to do that when we ended up hauling sludge in August, was to drain the digester, and because we assumed it needed some repair because it was not capturing gas. Well, before we ended up hauling sludge in August, magically it started capturing gas and was actually operating properly. So we were kind of a loss to understand what was going on, but we had planned when we emptied the hauled sludge in August, we would empty the digester and try and clean it. Well, I hadn't gotten a proper cost appraisal until that day and found out how much it was, and it kind of, anyway, it was a lot. It's basically the same amount of money we're paying right now. But
It was drained though, right?
It was drained, but we took the lid off of it and we looked inside of it. And it really didn't look that bad.
Okay.
Didn't look like there were a lot of rags in this, but maybe they were just below the water line and we couldn't see them. So then when we started it back up, those rags got pulled into the suction line, into the pump. We had to fight that for several days, take the pump out, clean it out, put it back together, pull more rags out of the line. We finally got that pumping, but in the process of that initial startup, rags got passed the pump and into the nozzles, which go from like a 6 or 8 inch line down to 3 inches or so. And so
That's inside the digester.
inside the digester.
Yeah.
So that constriction caused those rags to plug that pump, or those, not the pump, plug those nozzles. So we tried to fish them out from inside, took a piece of pipe apart, ran basically the same thing you would down your sewer at your house to try and pull rags out. And we did get a big wad of rags out and couldn't find any more, so we thought, oh, good. Well, that was not the case. The nozzles are plugged. And the only way we can get to them is inside the tank.
So the second question I have is the issue of the facility being so far away. I don't even know if we're settled on what facility is going to take undigested sludge, and my understanding is that Yucca won't have anything to do with it.
No, Yucca, I approached Yucca and they were against it. They said they didn't want to do that. So the company that I had, HM Environmental, working on this for me, they had a facility in Detroit, and I can't for the life of me tell you the name of it now. But we were going to haul it there, and we took a sample over there last week, and for some reason they waited till Friday to want it, and we took it over on Friday, and I found out this morning that, just looking at it, they didn't want it. They didn't do any testing. They just went, no, we don't want that. And so HM Environmental had a couple other contacts, and they did get a hold of another company, which I can't tell you the name of because I can't remember it. I've been very busy today. But he told me today that that company would take it, and we are going to start hauling tomorrow morning with your approval.
So is this price predicated on the newer company, or is this price tied to the original company?
That price is tied to the original company, but Bob from HM said that they're going to pretty much match that price.
Okay.
So it should not be a great change.
Okay, thank you, Superintendent Briggs. That's all I have.
All you have, Mr. Delorco, thank you very much. Mayor Pro Tem Gearbaugh, questions or comments?
Mr. Briggs, can you explain a little bit more?
Hold on, I'm sorry, Mr. Gearbaugh, my apologies. Mike, I follow very strict protocols here, so citizens have an opportunity to speak at the beginning and end. We'd welcome you to comment at the end, but at this time, it's just council members and staff. Mr. Gearbaugh, my apologies.
Mr. Briggs, this concern about the rags and everything, can you explain again? We're realizing that this is the problem that we're really experiencing is the flushable wipes. It's all of this stuff that is making this even more complicated at our plant,
Right.
causing these issues, correct?
Correct. Anytime you flush something down your toilet besides toilet paper and what comes out of your body, it's not good for the waste system. Either the sewer preceding the wastewater treatment plant or the wastewater treatment plant itself.
And our plant was designed not necessarily taking those into account because that issue was not an issue 25, 30 years ago.
Correct.
It's become a major issue in the last 15, and that's one of the phases that we're going to try and replace, hopefully, when we move forward on this thing. Is there anything we can do now in terms, besides what you're proposing, to solve this problem? We're going to probably run into this again, potentially, aren't we?
Well, potentially, my hope was that when we closed the digester up and fired it back up, everything would run smoothly, and we could wait until we got to the point of the upgrade and put a new fine bar screen in to eliminate anything coming in, and then after, say, a month or 2 or 3 months, it would run its course through the plant, end up in the digester, and then we could, at that point, clean it and be done with it. But it's probably going to be, it won't be as nearly as bad because we're not talking a larger span in time. We're talking, if we clean it in the next week or two and we get a plant up and running in the next 2 or 3 years, you only got 2 or 3 years of rags compared to however many years it was since the last time the digester was cleaned.
Is there anything that is there anything we can do preventatively in terms of the injectors or whatever you were talking about, and putting new screens or something on those, or retrofit?
No, not really. That's all something that's internal, and that's, if you try and restrict that, you'll have, with screens or anything, you'll have more problems. Yeah.
Thank you. I just want to make sure that we continue to reissue this concern that wipes are not flushable and they're causing the major problem in our system.
They're flushable, they're not biodegradable at all. They stay in one piece.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem Gearbaugh. Additional questions or comments for our wastewater treatment superintendent? No? Easy enough? Bill, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
We have a motion on the floor moved by Gearbaugh, seconded by Kraus, to acknowledge, to approve, and to authorize. Is there any additional discussion? There is none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Ayes have it, and the motion carries unanimously. We move on to new business item 22-244. This is CWSRF Financial Services. This will be a motion to acknowledge receipt of the memo from City Manager O'Toole and to approve or not to approve the agreement for financial services with Baker Tilly in the amount of $39,500.
Move to acknowledge and approve.
Boy, I'm going to go CO as the mover, Gearbaugh as the second. City Manager O'Toole, would you like to discuss your recent memo?
Certainly. So as was recently shared, the city ranked high enough to qualify for the state revolving loan program. As part of executing those loan documents, we will require a financial services firm to assist us with the public notices and the required updated rate study per the state's qualifications. This is a proposal from Baker Tilly, who we worked with on our previous rate study and have been working with more recently, specifically on water and sewer utilities. It is staff's recommendation that we work with them again on this project.
Very good. Are there questions or comments for the city manager? Mr. Seal.
Have we kept track of how much money we've had to pay in order to get this free money?
Well, in terms of all like the qualifying studies and whatnot, it would be fairly easy for us to pull that number together. I would say probably in the ballpark of 400,000.
Okay, thank you. So there is no free lunch?
No, the state has some real hurdles for you to jump through to qualify.
Thank you. You don't need to gather all that. That's good enough answer.
Mayor Pro Tem Gearbaugh. Thank you, Mr. Seal.
But Manager O'Toole, some of those expenses were actually for things that we need to do correctly out of that 400,000.
Yeah, I mean, things like the infiltration and inflow study are incredibly valuable to informing our capital improvement plans as we decide what sort of I&I to go after and try and remove from the system. And they have a real cost impact on the plant itself if we can eliminate that infiltration into the plant and reduce and basically free up capacity by reducing stormwater that's going into the wastewater treatment system.
So hopefully those will have a cost benefit in themselves.
Yes.
Not just for this loan, so thank you.
Councilmember Dillon.
Just for clarification, it says that we're paying this from the sewer fund. Their scope says that we pay them after closing, so we don't pay them now?
Correct. It can be paid from the loan proceeds.
Okay, right.
Anything else, Ms. Dillon?
No, that was all. Thank you.
Okay. Additional questions or comments for city staff? Any subsequent discussion on the motion? We have a motion on the floor moved by CO, seconded by Mayor Pro Tem Gearbaugh to acknowledge, to approve, and to authorize. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Ayes have it, the motion carries unanimously. We move on to the discussion portion of our agenda. First up is commission, committee, and task force reports from council members. Let me again start to my left with Councilmember Del Orco, and I will end with Councilmember Kraus.
Just real briefly, the Code Review Committee did meet last week, and we are continuing our discussions on the auxiliary dwelling units. Our representative from Carlisle Wortman was there moving us through the discussions around setbacks and height. So we're down in the weeds with taking a deep dive on that ordinance, and we'll continue working on that issue. As far as the Environmental Commission goes, we had an informed discussion about EV vehicles, chargers being placed in city parking lots, and forthcoming we'll be wanting to, the chair, Bruce Westlake, is very passionate about this cause, and we'll be wanting to set a meeting with the city manager and myself and Bruce to work through some of those ideas.
Very good. Thank you for that report. Mayor Pro Tem Gearbaugh, commission, committee, or task force reports from council members.
Yeah, Planning Commission met last week authorizing another special use and preliminary site plan approval for the marijuana facility on the west side of Michigan, on the west side of Saline on Michigan Avenue, off of Michigan Avenue. And then also the subcommittee for our master plan has met again, and we're getting prepared to hopefully schedule the town hall meetings in November and late October, I believe.
The email exchange today seemed to focus on
Didn't see that.
late October.
Yeah, we're hoping to try and get that in. I know Manager O'Toole is concentrating on something right now, but yeah, we're hoping the end of this October to at least get that started.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem Gearbaugh. Councilmember Dillon, commission, committee, or task force reports?
I've got quite a list.
Please.
Let's see, so coming up on October 6th, Zoning Board of Appeals will be meeting. We have a matter that will be before us. The Historic District Commission has 2 meetings coming up. They'll have a walking meeting on Wednesday, October 5th, which is outside in the Historic District. People are welcome to join and walk along. Their regular monthly meeting will happen on October 13th. The Strategic Planning Committee continues to meet and are working through facilitators right now and should be coming forth to the council relatively soon with some recommendations. The Fire Board will be meeting on Wednesday, October 5th. And last, I wanted to just make a comment about the Fireworks Committee. I know there was an issue on the agenda tonight. I am currently the chair of that committee. What it is that committee right now is not going to be any city-funded fireworks by any means. The committee actually has not met because what is happening right now is the city is reviewing what's been done in the past, what it would cost, what those costs were, so that we can go and look for sponsors. The city does not have dollars to put towards fireworks. I will put that out there right now, so I just want to be clear about that. This will not be a city-funded event, if it's an event at all. It would be solely funded by outside sources. And there is no saying that the city would even be the overseer of it. Right now, we're just the gatekeeper of past information that we're trying to pull together so that it can just be passed along.
Very good, thank you. Mr. Seo, commission, committee, or task force reports?
Yes, Your Honor. Just to confirm with Clerk Royal, we have postponed our cemetery board meeting, is that correct? Okay, there was going to be a cemetery board meeting next week on Thursday, the 13th of October. It's now been postponed until Thursday, the 10th of November, if anybody was dying to come to the cemetery board meeting.
Thank you for that. Mr. Kamara Sulak, any commission, committee, or task force reports?
Yes, Your Honor. Not sure how I can follow that up, but
Tough one.
I'll do my best. On a younger note, the Saline Youth Council welcomed in several new members and had some really good conversations on the volunteer opportunities and events that are going to take place through the school year. And then just really looking forward to additional recruiting and talking about how many clubs and organizations are having a hard time recruiting members and doing their tasks. But we are very optimistic, and that's all I have for today.
Very good. Councilmember Kraus, Commission, Committee, or Task Force reports.
Thank you, Mayor. Arts and Culture, I want to give a huge shout out to Catherine Downey, our chair, and several of our members. I wasn't able to help with this, but they've been super hardworking here in City Hall to rebuild the shelves in the area that protects our Bixby marionettes. For those of you who don't know, we inherited a large collection of marionettes from a longtime Saline family, and they were in kind of disarray, and they've been spending a lot of time in the basement trying to make sure that they're in the best shape they can be. And so I just want to give a shout out to them. Healthcare Task Force is another one. Without citizens' involvement, we will not bring more healthcare to Saline. There's been 2 surveys that have been out and about since last year. Our numbers are very low. I hear folks saying they want more healthcare, but the numbers on the survey are very low. We will not be successful at bringing more healthcare to Saline without survey numbers. If you see the survey out there on Facebook, I posted it through the Saline Post. It's gone out via as many channels as it possibly can. Please take it's like 30 seconds. Henry Ford, different healthcare orgs that we're working with are looking at these survey numbers. So please, if you see that out there and haven't taken it already, please take it. If you don't know where to find it, you can email Healthcare Task Force at cityofsaline.org, and we will make sure that you get it. So I just want to keep reiterating that we will not bring it if you guys don't let us know that you want more healthcare. We will be voting on our new officers, and our next meeting is 10/24 here at 7 p.m. if anybody's interested in knowing what's going on with Healthcare Task Force.
And Councilmember Kraus, just to make it even easier, because we have a number of concerned citizens in the audience this evening, if they can't find that survey and they can't remember the URL for the Healthcare Task Force, could they just connect with you directly and you can provide them the link?
Absolutely.
Excellent. Very important that you provide us feedback, especially if you want to see healthcare amenities return to the Saline community. We're working hard, but as Councilmember Kraus said, we need your assistance. Let me start to my left with reports or other announcements to finish us off this evening.
I have none.
No? None?
Nothing.
Easy enough, Mr. Seal?
Nothing further.
Mr. Kamir Sulek?
Nothing further.
Councilmember Kraus? No. City Manager O'Toole, anything I'm missing? Okay. Then we come to the second public comment period, folks. Under the Open Meetings Act, any citizen may come forward at this time and make a comment or question to City Council. This public comment period will be limited to 3 minutes per person. Anyone who would like to speak is requested but not required to state his or her name and address for the record. You can, of course, speak to water, sewer rates, anything that we discussed on tonight's agenda or anything that's on your mind. Please.
I'm so glad this isn't anything. I'm Mary Hess. I am still very concerned about the township properties that are receiving city water, city services. There are, in fact, islands in the city that I think that the council should get to the Boundary Commission and annex them, so they get to pay the same taxes we do. And because the ones that are islands in the city, they have their streets cleaned, they have lights, street lights, and I'm sorry, I don't like having that extra pay. There ought to be something to where they pay something for the water and sewer, since we're getting gacked. They also, as far as, I was wondering, does the school, the high school, get water from the city of Saline?
The high school does not, I'm sorry.
The new high school in
Does
the
not.
Pittsfield Township, okay. And then I was wondering where we was talking as far as the effluent of the tanks being trucked out. Years ago, we used to put it on the fields, farmers' fields. I don't know if we can do that anymore, but I'm wondering, we also checked with the effluent. And the manufacturers, Universal and Ford, when it was Ford, and also American Soy, was putting out some chemicals that they had to pay extra on. And I'm wondering, when the gentleman said we were refused, when they tested it, if it was just for particles, or if it's also chemicals too. I'm sorry for my voice. Anyway, I think that that's important, but I'm very concerned about the townships with water and sewer, and they're just doing the general. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Hess. There are additional citizen comments this evening.
Well, the first thing on the monies, and I know there's different money for different accounts, but as a person, and if you're in an emergency situation, you're not going to go to the movies, you're not going to go out to eat, you're not going to do all these other things. That's the same as money that's being allotted for here, being allotted for there. And it's all niceties, but everybody out here realizes this is an emergency. I'm not sure everybody back here realizes it. I think that's a problem for you guys. For all the people that haven't been on here in the past, this isn't really your problem, but this is a long-term thing. I moved to Saline in 1994 from just outside of town. I was still in Saline, but we didn't get the smell. I was like, what are they doing, fertilizing the fields over on Maple Road? What is this? And then after a while, I realized it's the sewage plant. 11 years ago, it stunk. And it was like every other week thing. It is a problem. It's been a problem. It's mismanagement. You guys ignored it and ignored it. I talked to Linda Tierhar, and I said, hey, South Lake Tahoe, when I worked out there for a short period of time with my brother, I said they stopped doing building permits because their system was overwhelmed. And Lake Tahoe is 99.9% pure water. They couldn't have it running into the river. They can't do it. They stopped building permits. They stopped expansion until they fixed the problem. And I was talking to her about this years ago. Oh, no, the sewer system can handle it. He seems stressed out to me because he's got a system that can't handle it. And you guys act like it doesn't exist. Oh, it's all good, no big deal. I'm sorry, but this is not the new people's problem. This is the old people's problems that haven't taken care of it and need to address it, need to come across it. But onward, flowers, green lawns. Saline, I thought, was a rich community. I'm not super wealthy. I'm pretty good off. But you're going to want brown lawns and dead flowers and bushes that look like crap, because that's what's going to happen. Those are crazy rates. You guys are making these people that water the grass feel guilty. That's crazy. Water should not cost this. I understand now, because of mismanagement, we have to put all this money into place now. But the sewer facilities are overwhelmed. They were overwhelmed, and now they're more overwhelmed because we keep building and throwing in subdivisions where they don't belong. I just wish you guys would stay focused on your priorities. I honestly don't think the rec center, the Celtic Festival, fireworks, I don't think anything is a priority right now, because you can take your funds and you can move them around in your different accounts. It's where you want to do it. You got to get rid of the wish list, because I go to Dexter. What the hell happened to Dexter? It's a beautiful community. It used to be a rinky-dink little town. They've moved along quite well. Chelsea's moved along quite well. I go to a bunch of little towns, antiquing. They've moved along quite well. Saline is stagnant. We are stagnant.
I didn't think I had anything more to say, but Shelley Andrews Torwood, based on Ms. Krause's remarks about the healthcare facilities, we can't get a healthcare facility. Might want to check with the people who are doing the surveys for the marijuana, because they don't, it seems like we're getting all kinds of marijuana. How many, 5? Nobody asked. 5 in the last, few months? We can't get a healthcare facility? There's something wrong with that. Yep. Something really wrong with that.
Thank you.
First of all, I'd like to thank everybody again for being here. I wish there was 10 times more of us, and we need to start doing this on a regular basis. These people need some advice, and I think there's nobody better than the group of people in here and our neighbors to do that. The deferment on our bill from Ms. O'Toole is great. It's a punch in the gut. It's still a punch in the gut. Whether it's November or December, it's still a frickin' punch in the gut. And it just puts us closer to that next bill. So what does that solve? Nothing. You're trying to appease a bunch of pissed off people, and I, for one, am not digesting that whatsoever. Second of all, I've heard from several members of council that we were ill-advised. This is your reasoning, or, I'm sorry, in my opinion, your excuse, that we were ill-advised by third-party consultants for what the increases were going to be. Who paid for those? Where did the funds come from, those third-party consultants? Who paid for that? Can anybody answer? Or is that out of protocol for this meeting? I don't know. But I think that all the funding eventually comes from us. So we're paying for consultants to give you misinformation, and then we're the ones that are paying the price. No apathy. We need to continue to reach out to our fellow citizens, to social media, to TV. Just as my wife and I were preparing to come down here for this meeting, first thing on the 6 o'clock news, Channel 7 Detroit, Carolyn, I can't remember her name, Clifford, yes. Very eloquent, and it was the top subject on the 6 o'clock news. And she was unbelievably spot on with everything. This is not going to go away. We are not going to be appeased by, oh, we're going to give you another 30 days to get screwed. We're still going to screw you, but we're going to wait for 30 days.
Any additional comments?
Lindy Dyack again. Thank you for offering the town hall. I'm taking back some notes to my community and hopeful that some more of my neighbors can join in on that. And I think that's great to have that discussion. I have a couple of comments, mostly about the water here. So I think everybody in this room is aware of the need, and the issues with the plant, et cetera. I think the discussion has been ongoing for some time. The 30% number and the $80 a bill, right, has been around for a little bit. We've been reading that. I just don't understand how the majority of you up there, not Jack, because Jack didn't get his bill yet, said you were surprised by what your bill came in at. All of you have the most intimate knowledge of what the budget is for this $80 million project that the taxpayers are paying for. And the majority of you up there said you were surprised by the increase in the bills that came in. I don't understand that. I don't understand that at all. I don't think anybody else here understands that. I would like to offer as well, can there be an assessment done of the surplus that has been achieved in this quarter versus what was expected? Because it seems like there should be a number there. And can that be spread out across, what we were supposed to take as increase this year to lower that increase a little bit, or toward next year's also very substantial planned increase? I think we have got to see more transparency around these numbers if we are expected to pay for this $80 million project. The last thing I would say is, Dean, you made a comment that, we weren't increasing, the cost of the water consumption. That went up 25%. I mean, it's $1, right, per 1,000 gallons. But the sewer went up in addition, 49%. So it's 25 on the water and it's plus 49 on the sewer. I mean, it's not nothing. I did get through the calculations once I finally saw that chart to understand that if this was my usage, that was my bill. But I didn't understand that when I had the round numbers of 30% or $80 a bill. So, thank you.
Thank you. Additional citizen comments?
Hello again. again, Nicole Rice, North Ann Arbor. So I kept my comments earlier short for a reason. I just simply read from the newsletter because I wanted to point out the difference between the response from that newsletter information and the response we're having this evening. This has been a very informative evening. I would like to thank City Manager O'Toole for the very informative discussion. You used really good plain language. You explained it to us. There was a public hearing about this. Didn't know that, and you all know that I follow this stuff very closely. So if I didn't know, they didn't know. So this kind of goes back to participation on both ends. Participation on our end. We are all participating tonight, and I think we're getting a little excited and fired up about participating in the city stuff, so let's keep that motivation going. But we also need to be reached out to from your end as well. We need to have back and forth conversation. We need to know when things are happening. Facebook is not a communications platform. I cannot stress that enough. We are a small enough town. We all know each other. We can go from door to door. We can make phone calls. We have to use all of our communication platforms to get information like this out before things.
Thank you. Any additional citizen comments?
Hi, my name is Michelle Shire. I live on Wildwood Trail. I wanted to clarify an issue with our water bill that my husband had spoke about, Jeff Shire, mentioned earlier. So we understand that comparing last quarter bill to this quarter is not comparable. We get that. And we're not comparing necessarily last quarter. We're comparing the 3 previous years to the same quarter. And we do have 2 meters. And so I know that's the big thing of, well, if you don't have 2 meters, we do. We have one for the inside, one for the outside use. And it's not the outside use that's the issue. We know we watered our garden. We don't actually use our sprinklers that we do have, but we are not disputing the outside use. The inside water meter is a very big problem compared to the previous years of the same quarter. So in 2019, same quarter, our bill was $273.16. We had usage of 13,000 inside, 11 out. In 2020, we had 388.16, 11 inside, 44 out. 2021, 295.64, 10,000 inside, 26 out. And then this year, 2022, $1,272.47. 62,000 inside and 18 out. The outside is not the problem. We understand that. But to go from 13 to 11 to 10 to 62, that does not compare. And we need somebody to look at the problem because there's obviously something wrong with that meter. And we do have DPW coming out tomorrow. Hopefully they will determine that there is a problem with the meter. My husband and I actually just spoke to Treasurer Cole outside a few minutes ago, and she agrees. There's something off. And I guess my biggest thing is that if we're having problems with our meter, how many other people have problems with their meter, and maybe that's what's going on with some of these things. And I look forward to a resolution. Hopefully we will get that. So thank you.
Thank you. Any additional citizen comments? One last call. Any additional citizen comments? Let me say a few things just to wrap this up. I think I speak not only for myself, but all my colleagues. We genuinely appreciate you all taking time out of your schedules to be with us this evening and to articulate your concerns and your frustrations on water sewer rates and several other issues. I want to clarify just a few things. Rehab of our wastewater treatment facility and upgrading water and sewer more broadly has been a key priority for the city of Saline for the past several years. But we can't change decades of neglect or the fact that this wasn't a priority for many, many years overnight. It will take time. That's simply the reality. I wish it wasn't the case, but it is. But let's go to the record and let's look at what we've done over the past 10 years. We started in 2013 and 2014 with a rehab of our wastewater treatment plant, then an odor abatement project. And now we've been planning for about 4 years for a comprehensive remodel of our entire facility. So again, I get the frustration. I understand the angst, but know that progress is being made. It takes longer than any of us would like, but we're moving in the right direction. I think if we stay on this trajectory, good things will transpire in the years ahead. I do want to address my friend, and he is genuinely my friend, Mr. Crotty, about the extension of the due date for water and sewer bills. That was not intended to placate anybody. I personally think that that's a best practice. Certainly more needs to be done, and to the point I made earlier to Mr. Grossman's suggestions, there are things that we can look into in the next 2 weeks and revisit at our next meeting. And maybe there's some additional relief and support that we can give to residents and utility users who are struggling. And that's a genuine promise. And again, this issue will be enumerated in 2 weeks' time. And if you'd like to participate in that meeting and comment and raise additional questions or concerns, you would be welcome to do that. The final thing, again, we're going to be having a town hall here in about a week and a half's time. That will be a more, we will accommodate a more free flowing exchange of ideas and opinions. And I would be happy at that time with city treasurer, with the city manager, to do a deeper dive into municipal finances and talk about our elevated bond rating, our fund balance policy, the fact that in recent years we've prioritized legacy costs to pay down retiree pension and health care. We've done a number of really important things in recent years that I'm proud of and that showcase that we are in fact good stewards of public resources. So let's continue this conversation and dialogue. I hope you'll participate again in 2 weeks' time. And to an earlier point, if you think that your meter read is off, whether it's off slightly or significantly, as was articulated just moments ago, please reach out to DPW ASAP. In fact, I would do so first thing tomorrow morning. We will make sure that staff follows up with you and responds to your concerns as expeditiously as possible. Are there any other comments or questions from the dais this evening? And I'll provide one last opportunity. Are there any other public comments tonight?
Can you get DPW to answer the phone?
If you call DPW and leave a message, Toby, and they don't return it within several hours, I would contact me or text me directly.
It's not like me to contact you.
You contact me all the time, and as you know, I welcome that. Agree or disagree, I try my best to make myself available, and the same is true for my council colleagues up here as well. We genuinely want to hear from you and address your questions and concerns and solve them if we're able. If there's nothing further, the chair would entertain a motion to adjourn tonight at, oh my goodness, I've got 9:57. 9:58, excuse me.
So moved.
8:57? Okay. 8:57 to adjourn. Was that moved by Dylan? Yes. Who was the second on that? Del Orco? Okay.